Welcome today to Food Feels and Banana Peels. I'm your host, Laura Pfeiffer, and I am so excited to welcome an amazing soul, reconnection, new friend. Kristin Grace McGary is here to speak with us today. She's an internationally recognized health and lifestyle alchemist. She's an author and a speaker. She weaves together 26 years of experience, education, wisdom, compassion to help empower you to reconnect, awaken, and rejuvenate on all levels. She's an authority in autoimmunity, functional blood chemistry analysis, thyroid and gut health, food as medicine, integrating body, mind, and spirit in health and soul care, and is initiated into several lineages of shamanic practices. The list goes on. This is amazing, everybody. I'm so excited to have her here. In her alchemical practices of individualized health and soul care, she has mastered dozens of modalities, some of which we're going to delve into today, including acupuncture and Asian medicine, advanced craniosacral and somato-emotional release, neural and perineural therapy, homeotherapy, functional healthcare, family constellation, medical qigong, psychosomatics, meditation, shamanic ceremony, and more. And it doesn't stop there because she's also authored several books, which we're going to share right away because you're definitely going to want to check them out after we chat today. She's the author of Holistic Keto for Gut Health, which I've read and loved and used her protocols. They're amazing. A program for resetting your metabolism and knowing your blood. Know your blood health, prevent disease, and enjoy vibrant health through functional blood chemistry and analysis. So she has several books out there. You can find her on Amazon or wherever you purchase your books. And you're going to definitely want to do that after we chat today. Kristin Grace, welcome. I'm so excited to chat with you. Thank you so much for being here today on Food Feels and Banana Peels.
Thank you, Laura, so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
We have so much that we can chat about today, so we're going to kind of delve right in, but I really want people to get a better understanding of you and who you are and a little bit about your journey, because like many of us, it hasn't been an easy journey. It's been a rewarding journey, but there's been a lot that has brought you to where you are in time space right now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I currently live an amazing life, and I split my time between Costa Rica and Hawaii and other places in the US like Boulder, Colorado and San Diego. And I have incredible fresh organic food I'm growing where I live, and clean air and water. And I get to travel and dance tango and see patients all over the world. It's super exciting. And it wasn't always like this. So many years ago, I was very ill. And I had a lot of these mysterious symptoms that no one could figure out. And I would go from doctor to doctor trying to get answers and spend tens of thousands of dollars. And no one could really dial it in for me. And I had started pre-med. So I had always been, it had always been in my mind and heart to be some kind of doctor. And so I was not going to settle with these answered, unanswered questions around my health and my life. And so I had symptoms like severe fatigue and excruciating pain all over my body, and I couldn't sleep, and I had TMJ, and I was dizzy, and my blood sugar was up and down, and I had neurological balance issues, and I was a mess. So I began a journey to discover not just how to deal with the symptoms, but to get to the root. And on that journey, I found many different modalities, some of which are based in ancient practices and some that are based in current medicine, current Western medicine, such as functional blood chemistry analysis. And this really helped me dial in what was going on at a biochemical level. And it was a game changer for me. So I discovered many things. I had not one, but two different kinds of anemia. And anemia is a major block to healing. If you don't deal with the root of that, people usually just don't get better for very long. I also had some genetic issues that I wasn't aware of that was blocking my body's ability to function optimally. So I had to dial some of those in. I had some genetic SNPs, they're called. So I wasn't able to metabolize certain nutrients, and my liver wasn't able to detox very well, and all sorts of stuff. I had heavy metal toxicity. I had an autoimmune disease that no one had told me about. I had gone undiagnosed and misdiagnosed for at least 10 years, riddled with symptoms, and no one even knew a basic test to check for it. So once I got into functional blood chemistry analysis, it was like the world opened up for me. And I found all of these things in my labs that no one had shown me or talked to me about. And so I quickly addressed them in very holistic ways. I have a really comprehensive approach, and I got better. So when I was very, very sick, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and I healed that completely in 2 years. I have not had a symptom in 26 years, 25
Wow.
years.
Amazing. And people are living with this for decades
Yes.
and lifetimes.
Yeah, so you can heal from this. And later, I had an autoimmune disease. I believe the fibromyalgia was the beginning of this autoimmune disease. And so I worked with it to a point, but there were factors I didn't realize yet. It's been a learning, growing path for me. Like I have genetic celiac. I don't just have a little gluten sensitivity, I have a big one. And I have cross reactivity to a bunch of non-glutinous foods that act like gluten in my body. And not many people are even aware of those foods or how to test for them. So once I dialed all of that in and healed my gut, I'm better and I'm thriving and I'm traveling and I'm living an amazing life. And now I'm able to share all of that wisdom and experience with others. I also, as you read, am well credentialed. So I'm not just a health coach, but I went to Asian medical school. I started in Western medicine. I was an EMT and worked in the ER for a while. And so I'm well versed in different medical worlds. So I can speak Asian medicine and functional medicine and Western medicine, and help bridge the gap for people.
And that's amazing. That's exactly what you do right now. You support people in bridging the gap between that physical dis-ease, if you will, to what's going on with the mental, emotional, spiritual aspect. And you bring all of your medicines together. I can't wait to talk further about it, in order to support people in their own journey toward health and healing. And you've been instrumental in supporting me on my journey as well. So I think that's really important to recognize a beautiful teacher and a friend. And I'm really, really excited to delve a little bit deeper because, as everyone can now tell, Kristin Grace has so much knowledge and experience to share with us. We're not going to be able to talk about everything today, but there are a few areas that I asked you to kind of let's focus on. So first of all, I want to ask you, because I'm asking everybody who comes on the podcast as a guest, what is your view on health and disease, and how has that changed in your journey?
That's a great question, Laura. I love that you asked this. It just shows your own understanding to ask such a comprehensive question, and your own wisdom that you share with your people. It's like, yeah. So when I started, I was in Western medicine. I was very disease symptom focused. And that's what I learned. And I also was in acute or like critical care, as an EMT. And so it was like, stop bleeding, save lives, work with a compound fracture, stabilize a head injury, right? It was acute critical care. And that's important and life-saving. And that doesn't treat the root of the issue. And so as I entered Asian medical school, I transitioned from Western medicine to Asian medicine. I started to learn more about the roots. So if you think of a tree and you think of the roots deep in the soil, we can't always see them, or we rarely can see them. And instead we see the tree trunk and we see the branches. And I think of the symptoms as the branches. And Western medicine is sometimes good at treating the branches. There's a lot of wonderful medications out there that can really help. If I have a raging UTI and I've done all my natural stuff, give me macrobid, the natural, give me the antibiotic if the natural stuff hasn't worked. I'm okay with that. Where Western medicine has gone astray is that they never seem to address the root, and they're not having a comprehensive approach, like you brought up, talking about mind, body, and spirit. And so my view shifted from disease focused to looking at the root of the imbalances in people's lives, because their biochemistry, we know from epigenetics that our biochemistry is impacted by our environment, our relationships, our nutrition, our stress levels, our hydration, how our gut is absorbing nutrients. All of this impacts our biochemistry. So if we're just throwing drugs at the biochemistry and we're not addressing all these other aspects of the being, then we're not going to get there, and people are going to continue to suffer. So I like to weave in all the parts. So I don't actually love labels of disease. I think they can be useful and they can be guideposts. They can guide us to asking more questions, to going deeper. And they can also, when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, it was a relief. So they can also bring relief, because I was told I was crazy. I had almost every doctor say, this is in your head, go see a psychologist. I'd go see a psychologist and they're like, you really are ill. You need to go see a doctor. And so in my own journey, I came to understand certain limitations. So dis-ease is a kind of imbalance in the body, the mind, and the spirit, and the emotional body. And in my psychosomatics training, what I found is every symptom has some kind of connection to an emotion or a stress or a situation. And working with my dear friend, Dr. Darren Weissman, who's a well-known Hay House author, I'm trained and certified in the Lifeline technique. We believe that symptoms, the body speaks a language of the unconscious, and symptoms are part of that language of the unconscious. It's, of course, we would never choose to wake up and have symptoms and feel horrible and have a disease, or to have gas and bloating and migraines and joint pain. And we would never choose that. So if we're not choosing it, where's it coming from? And I believe, and many do, that it's coming from the unconscious, and that this fuels different imbalances. So this is how my view of illness and disease has evolved. And if I can I add one more piece, Laura?
Of course.
So I wrote this in one of my books, and it's just coming up to me now to share. And that is the view of health. And health is more than just the absence of disease.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, gosh bless, including my own mother, is like, nope, I'm fine. I don't hurt, so I'm okay.
Right.
It's like, no, actually, Mom, you just had 2 toes amputated. You have diabetes. You've had 3 heart attacks. I'm like, you're not exactly the picture of health. But she's like, no, everything's great. She has type 3 diabetes. So she has Alzheimer's. The white matter of her brain shrank due to high blood sugar over time. And so I'm actually happy that she thinks she's fine and she's happy. And there's many of us, when we're starting on our journey, that think, no, we're fine. We're okay. I'm not sick. I don't have a disease, so I'm fine. I'm okay. But really, that may not be the case. I can find things in a lab 5 to 10 years before you'll have a symptom. That's pretty cool. Even naturopaths don't look at labs that way. And so health is more than just the absence of disease. It's a kind of resilience. It's a kind of ability to balance yourself, your hormones of stress. It's a kind of homeostasis where you're in constant balancing with your environment and your nutrition and your relationships, etc. And if you're not resilient enough and vibrant enough, and you don't have enough stored chi and vital life force energy to do that, you're not necessarily well.
Oh, wow. That's so wonderful. I love that. I love the way you summed all that up, and you brought all of these different aspects of your learning and your teaching and your knowledge to define what I totally agree. I totally agree in every single aspect of what you said. And you know, we all have our own journeys, and we all come to the various teachings and realizations in different ways. And I really appreciate you talking a little bit about symptoms. And I love the analogy of the tree and the roots, because not only do we experience symptoms, oftentimes we go to our MD or Western medicine to receive some help with a particular symptom, but not only do we potentially not cure and definitely not find the root of that symptom, then we begin to open up to more symptoms. So our bodies continue to feed back in a way that promotes what a pain, really dis-ease, really, which is what we're talking about here. So the beauty of what you've just said is connecting and finding the root in our energetic bodies.
Yeah. Well, physical, energetic, emotional, environmental. Yes. It's like connecting all the dots. It's, I think of it as, I think of our health, the ecosystem of our being, like a 10,000 piece puzzle. And when we first look at that puzzle, often pieces are upside down. We can't even see them. We don't even know what color they are to put them together. And so I offer a lot of different tools to flip all the pieces over so that we can actually see what they are, so we can put the puzzle pieces together for your health, so we can get a full picture, and then we know what direction to go in.
Amazing. I love that analogy too. So where to kind of go a little bit deeper here? I feel, first of all, we could address the fact that most of us don't know what health is, because we've actually never experienced what it is to live in pure harmony with ourselves. When we have ease and vitality and lots of energy, life force, when we have balance in our gut, when we have emotional stability and that resilience that we talked about, when our mental state is clear, many of us may never experience that if we don't begin to take off kind of I don't want to say the blinders, but well, kind of the blinders, right? And open things up to, hey, there's a lot more out there than just what is being given to me externally. And I believe where the healing begins in my own experience, and perhaps for you as well, is when you actually go inside, is when you begin to look at, let's go inside of me and stop listening to what is being told to me outside. And then, or maybe not stop listening, but begin to assimilate it and decide whether or not that's your truth or that's something that you can use as a tool on your journey, and then move towards something else.
Yes, I love what you're bringing up. I'm hearing the word empowerment.
Yes.
That you're speaking to empowerment. And it also sounds like, I love what you said. It's almost like we don't know what we don't know, right? The blinders are like, we don't know what we don't know. We didn't intentionally put blinders on to like necessarily hide from things. I mean, sometimes we do, but sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. So we find people like you to get coaching from. We find people like me to get coaching from, to get support from. And I think that this exploration of coming inside is so important. It's such an essential piece of the bigger picture of that giant puzzle, because food is important, as you know.
Yes, very.
And right, nutrition is important. And not only what we eat, but how we digest it, how we can absorb it or not, is important. People can spend a lot of money on health food, but their gut's a mess, and so they're not actually absorbing much of it. Bummer.
Yes.
Or people think they're doing really well because they go to their local super size me market and get, giant packs of whatever, and they buy their vitamins there. And those vitamins are usually not high quality and very difficult to absorb. So now you just have inexpensive or sometimes expensive urine. Because you're just peeing them out. And so all of these pieces are important. You know, if we have unresolved trauma from our childhood, which, boy, I had a lot of that, a lot of
Me
that.
too. Me too.
You know, right. Yeah. I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of us do. And just to speak to maybe some of your women listeners, sisters, ladies, a lot of us have had trauma, and you're not alone. And for our physical bodies to thrive, we need to start addressing the old trauma that's been suppressed in the cells, in the tissues, in the glands, in the organs. And we don't think necessarily in Western medicine that trauma can be stored. But now there are books coming out, and there are podcasts, and there are lectures on how trauma affects the nervous system, especially the autonomic nervous system. This fight, flight, freeze, fawn happens, within our nervous system. And this programs our cells. This imprints everything. The nervous system is helping run everything. And even if you don't think you're being triggered, you could smell something, see something, taste something, hear something, feel something, and you can have a biochemical trauma trigger and not even know it consciously. And that can act as hormones of stress in your body and cause inflammation and pain and mysterious symptoms. So this quest to come inside is so valuable and so important. It's a missing link in Western medicine. And Laura, going inside is not only psychology. That's a piece, right? That's like, we're top heavy and we're going to talk about the patterns, and we'll talk about the trauma, and we're going to unravel who did what and how that impacted us, and maybe find some feelings. Very important, but that's not the end game. And I think in Western medicine, they think just send someone to a therapist, a counselor, a psychotherapist, that's the end game, but it's not. Because all of that work that we did with our mind and our head and our thoughts has to come into the body, the emotional body, the energetic body, the spirit body. It has to be integrated. And this is where things like EMDR and psychosomatics and somato-emotional release, which is part of advanced cranial sacral therapy, we can really work with cell memory and release it once and for all. I had a car accident and I had something stuck in my back, a trauma, and I thought it was fine, except I have a flinch response in the car. Like, I had that flinch response if people went around a turn, or I had no control over it. And so I was in an advanced cranial sacral somato-emotional release class, and I had like 4 other people hands-on working on me. And my body, without my mind, I was not consciously doing this. My body moved through the car accident because I was in a rollover, and my body was twisting and turning. And I then saw in my mind the car accident, and I spoke it to the people around me because I was also a therapist at the time. And I said, I'm seeing the car accident in my head right now. We're there. And they held me through this, like unwinding my tissue, my body, my structure actually unwound the car accident. And they got to this one point and they stopped because they were listening to my body, because they were well trained. They stopped and we all took a deep breath, and I sobbed. And it was content free. I had no thoughts. I had no emotion. It was like locked in my back. And then this little irritating pain in my back left and never came back. And I felt like 1,000 pounds had been lifted off my shoulders. Now, it's not always that dramatic. The body doesn't always do that, but it can. And the body knows. The body has the wisdom. If you're working with trained therapists, trained body workers, trained psychologists, trained EMDR practitioners, there's tons of breath work, etc. Psychedelic therapists. If you're with someone who's highly skilled, they can listen to your body, your system, and follow you. You're in charge. They're not guiding you. You're in charge. They do guide, but I mean, they don't force. It's different. It's like, it's a guide. In cranial sacral, I say, I'm one step behind your tissues. But
Your
I'm
support.
You.
Your support
and
system. Yeah.
empowerment. Right. Support and empowerment. And then in psychedelic therapy, I do offer a question, or I do offer a guidance in that in a different way, but it's never a push. It's never a you should. It's never a you have to. It's never a have you ever done that, or could you, it's not with that. It's like, here's an offering. How does this land for your system? Does that feel aligned? And a good therapist will do that. So this journey within is unique for everyone. And I think meditation and contemplation, and there's so many different modalities and therapeutic yoga, and there's so many beautiful modalities out there to explore, to empower you to go inside with support. You don't have to do it alone. So I'm glad you brought this up, Laura, because it's often left out of these conversations. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for clarifying what is such a very deep and complex topic. And I think it's important also to mention that it's an individual journey for each of us. So we share our experiences, and this is the knowledge and wisdom that we have gained on our paths. And these are the tools that we present and that have worked for us. And your tools and my tools, while we share some, they're also different, right? Not everyone is going to align with everything. However, what we're here to do is discuss that there are many, many options, and we each have a choice. And so, hey, if craniosacral aligns for you, then go for it, baby. Go, give it a try, see how it works. If that doesn't align for you, try the next modality, right? Health and vitality and happiness are within reach of every single one of us, but not within reach like you grab a pill and put it in your mouth. It is very important to go on the journey because our bodies are teaching us. Our bodies are full of wisdom and guidance, but we have to be willing to go inward to explore and connect in order to receive the guidance and the health and happiness that we're all desiring to live on this journey.
Yes. I love that you bring up the willingness. Yeah, this openness to be curious, this openness to inquire. I think once we think we have all the answers, we're really lost. And I think sitting in the seat of curiosity, going within and being curious about what you may find, is a sweet place to be. And I bet you experience this in yoga when you teach yoga too, right? You're teaching people to go in through a physical practice. Right? And everyone goes in a little differently, and everyone embodies each pose a little differently. And there are these sweet spots for people in different places. And I think it's like that on our health journey too.
For sure. And I always say when I'm teaching, you come for the asana or the postures, but it's really the experience that you have while you're there. So while I draw you in thinking, oh, I'm doing this good for my physical body, we're really working with the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of ourselves at the same time. So, people say, oh, well, I don't feel like that when I go to a cardio class. And it's like, no, you don't. You're not going to, right? I mean, because we're so mindful when we're doing it. So yeah. So okay, Kristin Grace, because you have so many different modalities, when we chatted before, I said, Kristin Grace, you're going to have to choose what it is that we can delve a little bit deeper into, that you feel. I feel like there's a lot of people who are beginning their journeys to themselves and seeking alternative, maybe health practices that might be able to support them. Where would you like to begin?
Yeah, thanks for asking. The first, and I've mentioned this already, so let's dive into it. Functional blood chemistry analysis. And the reason being is because, myself included, I am very attached to my physical body. Here I am in this 3D dimension. And as I've done decades of meditation, and I'm trained in psychedelic therapies, and yet, so I traverse multiple realms at times, and yet here we are in this physical body, and I eat and I sleep and I exercise, and I think we associate and attach to an identity in this body, and that's not always bad. It's when we start clinging to it that's all there is, that then we need more support, more empowerment. So I want to start with functional blood chemistry analysis, because that's really going into the biochemistry first. And I think this is a really good starting place, that can then be the portal, the doorway that opens us to considering and getting curious about other things in our ecosystem of our lives, in our emotional well-being, in our relationships, in our communication, in our nutrition, in our genetics, in our exercise routines, or whatever. So I think functional blood chemistry analysis is where I would like to start. How's that for you?
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Okay.
So excited to learn more.
So let's just start by explaining what it is, because it's a lot of words and they're big words.
Mhm.
So basically, it's a very unique way of both ordering and interpreting a Western medical lab. There are three main differences I'm going to go over. So the first are the number of labs that I want to order. So if you go for your annual checkup, you may get between like 10 to 20 lab markers ordered. I just had somebody come in and she had a CBC. I think she had a complete blood count panel, very basic, and cholesterol done. I think there was maybe 12 max tests, max, might have been 10.
And you're talking the US generally as well, right? And we're in Canada, and we are even less, I would suggest, with our healthcare system, because we're socialized medicine. So they try as best they can to avoid extra costs at all costs.
I actually have had many patients in Canada.
Okay.
And it's in terms of the basics for an annual checkup, it's very similar.
Okay.
You guys are following a very similar standard of care.
Okay.
So it's still around 10 as the basic. You know, you're going to get your white blood cell count, your red blood cell count, your hemoglobin, your hematocrit, you know, your red blood cell width and diameter, your platelets. Like, you're going to get those kind of maybe your blood sugar, your fasting, you know, you're going to get some of those basics. It's about 10.
Okay. So
I like to order more like 70
wow.
markers plus a urinalysis every year.
Wow.
And this ensures I can find things that no one else has been able to find. And one of I'm very proud of this, because I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I had autoimmune disease, and no one until myself had ordered a full thyroid panel for me. And a full thyroid panel is 8 markers and 2 antibody tests. And I just had a patient in Utah, and her endocrinologist only ordered a TSH and believed that's all she needed.
Wow.
TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and it actually comes from the pituitary gland. It's not even produced in the thyroid. And that endocrinologist looked at my entire panel and said, "You don't need any of that. Those don't matter to me. Your TSH is what matters." So I'm quite proud. It's actually how I found I had an autoimmune disease and healed it, that on my lab, and what I want to see, and how I work with people, I have all those 10 markers of thyroid health. And it doesn't only show me thyroid. It shows me a lot of other things. It shows me other hormone I get information on other hormones. I get information on your adrenals. I get information on your brain and your pituitary gland. I get information on your gut and your liver. It's interesting. And so I really want to turn over all the pieces of your health puzzle so I can see them and then put it together. So 70 plus markers and a urinalysis. So the number of markers I order is much bigger. And from that, I may order more. I may need to see a genetic thing. I may need to see a gut thing. I may need to see food sensitivity test. I may need to see some mold testing. I may need to see something else, or a predictive antibody test. If I see you're predisposed to autoimmunity and I'm suspicious, or I see you have antibodies to your thyroid, we need to check for other autoimmune issues, because autoimmune issues never come as just one. Never. You will get more. They come in 3s. So the number is different. Now, next, the reference ranges. So on your lab, Lori, have you seen those reference ranges, right?
Yes.
They're on labs, even in Canada. You know, I work with people in Belgium and Germany and London, and they all have reference ranges. Even, you know, here in Costa Rica, where I am right now, it's all in Spanish. I can do it. They have reference ranges. Well, those reference ranges, in my book, I write about this. I did a bunch of research on them. Do you have any idea where those come from, Laura?
I do now, and it just absolutely floors me. Absolutely floors me. I would love for you to explain it, because it just blows my mind that this is how we find a normal range.
Right. So this reference range is taught to us to be average and normal. Like if you fall within this reference range, you're good. You're healthy, you're okay. Well, my friends, not true. So those reference ranges are based on a couple of things. One is a very old 10, 15, 20-year-old group of 10 sick people. And that lab hasn't updated. And most labs update 10, 15, 20 years, if at all, their reference ranges. And it's usually based on a tiny population of mostly sick people that gave blood at their lab. Whoa,
Yeah.
Not an accurate measure of health. Or even better, those reference ranges come from a lab insert, from a test kit insert that says what they think the reference ranges should be, not even based on people, based on probably stats, which would be based on people, but scary. So it's a challenge. If we're looking to our doctors and our naturopaths for accurate reading of our labs, hoping that they'll find what's wrong and why we have these symptoms, we may not find the answers there. My reference ranges are based on functional medicine, and they're more narrow. So I can find things, little things, that can have a big effect on your physical body and mind. I can find things 5 to 10 years before you may have a diagnosis or a symptom. So we can act preventatively. Or if you're having symptoms, we can really get to the root of it. I love my functional medical colleagues. A lot of them are MDs. I am not an MD. I am certified in functional medicine, and I'm nationally board licensed as an acupuncturist, an Asian medical practitioner, and I'm licensed in multiple states, but I'm not an MD. And even my MD friends who do functional medicine often don't spend time and go through those reference ranges with people properly. They often have a computer program that they plug your numbers into, and it spits out a standardized reading, and you get what's in the green, what's in the yellow, and what's in the red. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's better than nothing. It's better than average, but it's not good enough for you according to my standards. So I do it by hand. And I do it by hand because I'm looking at 26 pages of your intake forms, and I'm looking at your whole life and your way of being, not just your biochemistry. And then I connect the dots and the puzzle pieces. Okay, sorry, you wanted to say something.
No, well, I was just going to say that, and it's so important then to know your practitioner and understand how your practitioner works. So just because you have a functional medicine certification and this MD over here has a functional medicine certification, it does not mean that they are treating individuals in the same way. And I talked about this with a friend of mine and a naturopathic doctor. We talked about even interview your people, interview them, get to know who is helping you, who is there for support, and how they function, because each person is individual. And if we are looking at people through, these reference ranges, putting them in boxes, however you want to call it, which we see a lot in Western medicine, we are not going to be able to find individual roots. Maybe we can find that initial large root that goes underneath the surface. However, those teeny tiny networks of roots that expand for miles in every single direction, we need somebody who understands the body as a whole and looks at the body as a whole in order to find those things.
I completely agree. Yes. And to become an informed consumer. In the functional blood chemistry book that I wrote, Know Your Blood, Know Your Health, I think it's one of the last chapters, I write about how to interview your doctor. And I think you don't have to get rid of your doctor, just know what they're good at and create a team, right? Yes. I love working with colleagues. I love working with Western medical physicians and naturopaths and psychologists and health coaches and nutritionists, because it takes a team, because you're bringing your own unique wisdom and skill set to someone, and I'm bringing my own unique one. So I want to empower your listeners to create a team of people you trust. And if there's someone you don't like and they're not meeting your needs, they don't need to be on your team.
Yes.
And I think it's important to be empowered in that way, that doctors aren't gods, and they've had a lot of great education, and it's incomplete education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not going to be giving advice about pharmacology, right? I had a pharmacology class in Asian medical school, but, you know, or I probably have had a pharmacology class outside of Asian medical school. Now they teach it in Asian medical school. And I'm not going to be giving advice on that. I'm going to talk to a doctor about it, right? Or a pharmacist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to work
Right.
with those people. I want to understand how the drugs are interacting with each other and with nutraceuticals and herbs. And I want to understand how someone might need to titrate off something if they're overdosed. And I work with endocrinologists and doctors with thyroid medication with people all the time, because they're often not very well versed in it, even though they took pharmacology.
Right.
So it's good to have multiple eyes and hearts on your case, on your
Agreed.
health, on your life, on your body. And so I love what you said, you know, interview doctors, talk to people, talk to your health coaches, ask questions, and refer to that chapter in my book. I have lots of good questions, like, how should your doctor respond to this? If your doctor is pissed off and angry at you because you asked a question, they may not be a good fit.
Right.
And I understand in Canada, it might take you time to find another doctor, but it's worth it, because if this one's not meeting your needs and meeting you where you are,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they could hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keep looking and listening to your body and your intuition, and until you find those answers. Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Amazing.
So finally, there's one other difference with functional blood chemistry analysis I want to bring up. So
Yes.
right now we have the number of markers tested. We have the reference ranges are different and more narrow. Now I want to add the patterns I look for. So in Western medicine, we often look at an isolated marker. And we put a value to that and we say, oh, your cholesterol's high, take a statin drug, right? That's
Right.
the standard of care. Standard of care. They're bound by a standard of care.
Yeah.
And that can lead to challenges,
Mm-hmm.
because we are not an isolated marker. I am not just one organ or one gland or one bone. I am a complex system. You are a complex system. And so I look at patterns and how things work together. I would never just look at one cholesterol marker. I want to look at the whole panel and like 10 other markers, because a lot of cholesterol issues are not true cholesterol issues. There's something else. And I write about that in my book. And just because your TSH is off in your thyroid doesn't always mean it's a thyroid issue.
Mm-hmm.
And just because your fibrinogen is high doesn't mean it's a serious clotting issue. Or just because your homocysteine is high, well, that means you have inflammation, but it doesn't tell me where. We need to look at other markers to find out where it is.
Yes.
And I have to see, oh, well, is that high because of this nutritional status over here? Because you can get high homocysteine if other things are off. Oh, that's interesting. You know, so
Right.
there are many, many pieces, and how things are patterned makes a difference, and it gives me information. And a lot of doctors don't look at that, and a lot of computer programs don't look at that. And then finally, the fourth, I guess I said there's three, but really there's four, is when I'm looking at that lab and I'm comparing it to all the things you wrote to me about yourself, your nutrition, what products you put on your body, what toothpaste you use, you know, what is your house like? What are the EMFs like? What do you put perfume on? Do you have mercury fillings? Did you have exposure to toxic chemicals? Did you have abuse as a child? Have you ever been depressed or anxious? You know, I'm looking at all of that, and it sounds a little woo-woo, Laura, but I can use that lab to find and identify and help bring to light emotional challenges and traumas and blocks in someone's whole system. And there are many, many functional docs that have no clue how to do that. And they're doing a great job. It's not bad. There's just, like you said, we all have our own unique gift.
Yes.
And we all have our own unique way of doing it. And if your people have access to functional docs, I think it's much better than a conventional for the most.
Yeah, I love.
Just know it's incomplete.
I love that you explained that, because that is exactly what I wanted to definitely highlight. The fact that, you know, functional medicine is definitely looks at things a lot different than Western medicine, because it understands that the body is a whole and not individual pieces, where a lot of Western medicine looks at things individually, right? And when you're testing in functional, you're testing for all of these markers and the interconnectedness between them all. And where I believe you raise the bar to a next level is bringing in all the Eastern medicine, all the Eastern trainings, the plant medicine, all of those things that you do in order to support the entire being. And that's where you are above the rest, in my opinion, the way that you support your clients, because you are looking at the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And sure, you have that beautiful functional medicine panel testing, but it's not just that. You're not just reading off numbers and, you know, making connections, if you will. You're also bringing in all these other avenues of training and knowledge that help to support the numbers that you're seeing. And that, everyone, is what I would suggest in order to look deeper into your health. Find somebody who understands that the body is a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual vessel, and can help to support you. And whether that's an individual, or, like Kristin Grace talked about, individuals in your care community continuum, find the people that can help you look at all of those bodies and hopefully can work together, because you're worth it. You are worth it, and nobody is going to heal you but you, and you have to find the people who are going to help show you how to do that.
Yes, beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love what you just said. Nobody's going to heal you but you. I love it. It's true. We're going to get guidance and support and empowerment. We're going to get information. We're going to get informed. But ultimately, the healing is inside of me. And we have a whole pharmacy inside of our bodies already. And we have so much power inside of us. And inside of our minds are so incredible. We could just look at the research on the placebo, right? Holy moly, we are powerful beings. So I also want to inspire any of your listeners who might not be feeling well, that there's hope, and that if I can pull myself out of a horrific condition and heal it completely against all odds, and I know many people who have done this, then even if you have a lot of symptoms and you're really suffering, I want to share with your listeners that there's hope.
Thank you. I know that's really, really important. You know, you and I have been kind of to the lowest of our lows in our health journeys, right? Where we had to find that little last glimmer of hope and go, okay, I'm worth it. I can do this. What I'm being told isn't aligning for me. It's not aligning. I don't have to believe this. And diagnosis doesn't have to be a prognosis. We get to then decide how we want to move forward and support ourselves. So thank you for that inspiration. I think that's so important for people to know. And regardless of where you are in this time and space when you're listening, it doesn't have to stay that way. And the only person who can change that is you.
Yeah. And I can have the perspective of someone who is really sick myself and had a lot of symptoms, and it can feel overwhelming, Laura, right? Yeah. I bet you felt overwhelmed completely when we're at the bottom of the bottom, and Like, I mean, there were weeks I couldn't even get out of bed, and I gained 35 pounds, and I was depressed and anxious. And I had pain all over my body. And if in that moment I heard, oh yeah, the only one who can heal me is me, I'd be like, oh, I'd probably say a curse word, right? So if you're one of
Fair.
those people in bed right now, there's also the message of empowerment and not to give up. Right? That there's hope, because although most people come to me say, I've tried everything. And then I'm like, well, did you try this? And did you try that? And did you try that? And they're like, no, I've never heard of those things. And so if you're one of those people that don't feel a lot of hope right now, and you feel like you've tried everything, I promise you, you haven't. And I promise you, there's more to explore and not to give up. And that, like Laura said, part of that exploration is internal. And there are some really interesting books, and I'm going to write a fourth book soon that talks a little bit about this. But we have a mental and emotional connection to illness, and we may want to push it away. And we do this in Western medicine. Take a pill. We don't want to feel pain. We don't want to be upset. We don't want to have anxiety. We don't want to not sleep. We don't want to blah, 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 whatever. Take the pill. Do the thing. But really, sometimes, instead of pushing away the symptoms and hating the symptoms and feeling hopeless about the symptoms and overwhelmed about the symptoms, sometimes we actually have to do the opposite, like you said, Laura, and go into them. Go into the pain. Go into ourselves. And you can find myself or you, Laura, or therapists like us, practitioners like us, that have the tools to take you inside in your own unique way. Because as you begin to explore the pain from a different vantage point, as you begin to explore the symptom of anxiety or exhaustion or obesity or addiction from a different perspective, you will receive insights about yourself that will allow you to grow and evolve. And we can often outgrow illness in a way, out evolve it in a way. We begin to work with the mind and the biochemistry in very special ways. And then that particular condition can no longer be sustained in that body. It shifts because the biochemistry shifted, the mind shifted, the emotion shifted. You can't stay sick. It's just, and that in the beginning can be difficult to understand, and also possibly inspiring.
And the curiosity is so important. You know, getting curious, like you said, getting curious about what are my potential options, and then doing some research, doing some homework. Now, Kristin Grace, you have an extensive amount of support available to people. How could they connect with you if they would like to learn more about you and what you do, and how maybe you could help them?
Yes, thanks for asking. I have a website. I have tons and tons of information on my website. And I even offer a free optimal wellness consultation for 20 minutes. If you're wanting help with your health, I like to see if we're a good fit. And you get to interview me just as much as I interview you, and see if I can help you. And if not, I'll tell you I can't. And I'll make some kind of recommendation. So there's that on my website. I also have a free newsletter, and I send a blog out, and I send a beautiful recipe out every month, and stay in touch. I give lots of free gifts away. I run retreats, and I do functional blood chemistry analysis online over Zoom all over the world. So you can always do that with me. So you can explore my website, which is my full name, and I'll spell it for you since this is probably
I can include it too, Kristin, in the write-up. Yeah, no problem.
Great. It's KristinGraceMcGary.com, and KristinGraceMcGary.com.
Beautiful. And then one more question that came up was, what about tools and resources that maybe you could recommend for people to get started on their journey right now, if they begin to want to shift and change their perspective and learn a little bit more, what are some initial tools that, or resources, books, podcasts, any of those kinds of things that you could recommend?
Great question. Well, I think my book on functional blood chemistry analysis is a great starting point because it's written for the layperson as well as a healthcare provider. Like there are science geeky parts that you can read or not. And then there's layperson stuff about how to be an empowered consumer of your own healthcare, how to interview your doctor. What lab should you ask your doctor for? What do they mean? You can get a lot of information there. And I think it's a great starting place. And I think you read the first book, The Holistic Keto for Gut Health. I think gut health, as we agree, is very foundational in our health.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm not 100% keto gal. I worked with a big publisher, and so they choose titles, and so there is a keto slant in it, but it's not a standard keto slant. It's different, it's unique, and it's specific for healing the gut. So even if you're not keto, you can still heal your gut. And there's tons of information on how to do that, and recipes and contemplative exercises in that Holistic Keto for Gut Health, a program for resetting your metabolism book. I just think that those are two really super simple resources that cover a lot of bases, because I bring in Asian medicine, I bring in functional medicine, I talk about Western medicine, I talk about emotions, I talk about the unconscious, I talk about foods and nutrition and gluten and dairy and soy and legumes, and like all that stuff is in there. I talk about the integral model and meditation. So I think that those are two really good starting points.
Beautiful. I love that. I loved the Holistic Keto book. I think it debunks a lot of myths and clears up a lot about food. So anybody who is definitely interested in learning more about foods that you may think are helpful to your body, if your gut is not in alignment, are actually going to be harmful to your body. So yeah, definitely check out those resources of Kristin Grace's. Check out her website. I'll include all of that in the write-up for the podcast episode. And I guess last, I just wanted to ask you like a final question, if you have anything else that you'd like to share with listeners as we close off for today.
Thanks for asking. What immediately came in was to take a moment every day and to unplug and to be in nature in some way, a patch of grass, a flower, a house plant, a tree, and connect to nature, connect to the elements, and pause and take a moment to be grateful for everything you have. Or pick 10 things a day. And if you're in a rough spot, it might be, I'm so grateful that I have 10 fingers. I've had days like that. I'm so grateful that I have sight and that I can taste my food today. I'm so grateful that the sun rose today and I can have a glimpse of it. I'm so grateful that I have my animal with me. I'm so grateful that I have a family member. I'm so grateful that I have a job. I'm so grateful that I'm breathing. It could be that simple. Mm-hmm. And to have a gratitude moment unplugged in nature every day is some of the most powerful medicine I found.
Absolutely. And I agree with that 100% wholeheartedly. Of sacred self-connection time, the time for just bringing ourselves inside, and the time out in nature, it just magnifies it that much more, right? Rooting us and connecting us to all that we are, all beings, and the interconnectedness of everyone and everything. So thank you, Kristin Grace, so much for your time and sharing all your wisdom and your knowledge. I'm definitely hoping that everybody is going to check out your website and read your books, because there is so much more presented than we could kind of get into in an hour of time. I hope that we're going to do this again. We'll pick a different modality, hopefully, and kind of delve into that a little bit further. We've talked more about kind of the physical body for the most part through functional medicine. And I'd love if at some point we can get into something a little bit more energetic, a little more
Yes.
woo-woo for those people who are like, I wonder how that works. But for the meantime, do
Great.
your research, become an informed consumer. Know that this is where you are in your journey right now, and Kristin Grace and I are here to tell you that it can change and it will change, and that begins with you and aligning with yourself, and then beginning from there to navigate the various tools and resources that are around you. We just have to be open to calling them in.
Beautiful. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks for
Thank
having.
you. Thank you so much for your time today, Kristin Grace. I really appreciate it. Big hugs, and I look forward to chatting with you soon.
Yay. Big hugs. Blessings.
Bye for now.
Bye.